wait for it, piling in. As 1979, 1969, William Spring. In about 10 years, it defaults, and William Foley and Richard Fry have it, well, because of foreclosure in 1979. And Dorothy Scott decides to be a nice attraction next door to the gift shop, and then she takes it down. Okay, that's when it came down around 2006. That's what it looks like. Well, it's been looking like that. Lutz Construction. Okay, there's that lot that already has a restaurant here. Nothing here. In 1946, Dorothy Scott buys it from Herman Williston for the Inlet gift shop. It's still empty there. Inlet Gift Center, I'm sorry. That's Harold and Dorothy. There's a better looking picture in more recent days. In more recent days, 2006, from Jane Burrell, Richard Lutz buys it, and before he renovates it, this is what it looked like. It says Inlet Gift Center a little bit there, and that's what it looks like today. He acquires it in 2006. Scott's Inn. Okay, no, I don't want to try it. In 1921, Albert Boschart sells that lot next to Khalil's to Fred and Anna Trottier. Now, Fred dies in 1933, and Anna Trottier sells it to, by the way, this is an advertisement for it, home cooking, rooms to rent. Fred dies in 1933. Anna sells it to George and Lorraine Gardner, who lived at Rocket Lake. It becomes Gardner's. How many knew that? You had the postcard, right, Tom?
I don't have a postcard.
Don't have it?
No.
I got one on you? Okay. All right. Now, they ran that for a few years and they decided to go back to Rocket Lake. And the Gardners sell it back to Anna Trottier. In 1944, she sells it to Harold and Dorothy Scott. And it becomes Scott's Inn. This is the inside of it. I know I've been downstairs in it last week, and I don't know if it looks like that, but anyway. All kinds of changes happening there. This is some more pictures of Scott's Inn. And you can see the Inlet department store is starting to happen here. But I'll have that story for another day. And these are some advertisements I found about Scott's Inn. In 1984, Carl and Emma Smith were operating it. And their chef was Bob Munchine. Anybody know these personalities? Munchine, thank you. And is that the same Carl Smith who also did carpentry?
No.
Different one, okay, thank you. Just asking. I don't know when it became Coasters. Who operated Coasters? Does anybody know?
Yeah. That was Ted's mother.
Take Mr. Burr's mother? Okay. That's right, then became Palermo's once, didn't it? Anybody got some pictures? We could sure use them to fill in the blanks. Thank you. Then, in 2009, what happened was Christy Sunderland bought it, and because she was going to turn it around and make something of it, and then she dies in a motorcycle crash. And then Archie Delmarsh acquired it, started doing different things. It started out as 4th and Main, then it became the Adirondack Shirt Factory, and then Adirondack Shirt Alpaca Factory. In 2020, he sells it to Jack Greco Jr. And it's becoming a kind of a furniture store, part 2. I'm waiting to see what else they do with that. Downstairs, it needs a lot of work. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God, yeah.
right. All right, Screaming Eagle. Okay. In 1917, there was a building here that might have been a restaurant, maybe not, but it later became Roses, Walter Roses. And this is Walter Roses right here. Okay? And in this picture I showed earlier, it's still Roses Restaurant. In 1945, Walter sells it to Peter and Gladys Capisser, who, am I pronouncing that right? Capisser, who renamed it the Capitol. And they just so happen to have some ornaments on the wall that say Pete and Gladys. Was there a TV show, Pete and Gladys? In 1945, as I just said. Okay, it's still the Capitol here. In by the way, during the period of time they owned it, it went through different owners. Gladys sold it to Stanley Martin, and different owners, too numerous to name. In 1979, Paul and Tamara Clock renamed it Clock's Restaurant. What was that named after, Tammy?
See, I don't know. It's very original. Even the sign on a barnwood.
All right, here's another picture. Now in 1985, the Clocks sell it to Douglas Hugemeyer, who gives it back the name Capitol Restaurant and Lounge, 1985. In 1989, 4 people buy it. Ultimately, Margaret Dacre becomes the sole owner. She calls it the Loon Saloon. That's Sharon Preston of Limekiln Lake. Shirley Preston. She gave a lot of money to the Inlet Historical Society over the years until she passed. Okay, in 1996, Douglas and Sharon Miller acquired and called it Screaming Eagle. But first, they were over here in Harry Hall's building. They were in Eagle Bay briefly before that, but I didn't have a picture of that. And now they got their new home. All right? Changes briefly through the years. Walter Roses over here. Red and white coffee cup, Capitol. Petals and Petals. Thistle Creek Antiques. Anybody remember that?
Yes.
Didn't it have a car run into it?
Yes. Yeah. The owner died later on. So.
Oh, wow. Here's Screaming Eagle at that time. Here at Petals and Petals, Donald Grace was a real estate or lawyer. He's there in Screaming Eagle. I think it had the coffee cup in a different picture. Here it is. I showed it.
Mm-hmm. What was the antique shop called again?
Thistle Creek.
Yeah.
You got to say it with a mouth,
The
dry
wife
mouth.
moved to Florida.
Pardon?
The wife moved to Florida. The husband died when she moved
Okay.
away.
That was the driver? Or the
I don't know what
person
happened to the driver.
No, I mean, they're not the people who ran the shop, was it?
Somebody drove into it, but the people that owned the shop, the husband died shortly thereafter, and the wife moved to Florida.
I got you. Thank you, Tom. Archie's Alley. All right, here's the coffee cup. Here's somebody.
Wow!
Who's that kid? Is that Michael Bartolotti?
That's Michael Bartolotti.
Oh wow! Before he got a baseball cap.
He got that out of season.
Shot it with a 22, yeah.
Photo courtesy of the Rudds. Inez Rudd, Greg, and Gordy's mom. Keith Berryman and Dorothy Suba. She's a postmaster. And I think that's her silhouette on the top shelf behind her. I have no idea who this guy is. Okay, and she also made great donuts, I heard. Thistle Creek Antiques. What? I'm sorry. Grace's Place. And look at that bright blue Archie's Alley. We did Screaming Eagle. How about the Parquet? Okay. The first post office in town, if you've got postcards, in 1900, Wellington Kenwell was managing the Hess camp, and he built this building here. People sold postcards out of there, but it's also the first post office in town when the town became a town and official post office. Charles O'Hara was the postmaster before, and he operated out of the Inlet Inn. After that, Fred Parquet became the postmaster. He came from Castellan to Inlet. He bought a piece of land from Albert Boschart. He made a large building. His barbershop would be on the lower floor. Second floor would be ice cream parlors and living rooms. Third floor, sleeping rooms. We wish them success. Okay. 1906, they came to town. And there's the Parquet. Anybody know where that building is today? It hasn't moved.
Yeah.
Right behind Northern Lights.
Yes.
This is the second post office. I love the kid in this movie, in this picture. All right. Fred Parquet acquires the land next door, and he builds what he calls an annex. That's what this building is. And the post office moves there, that little shack is gone. Later on, he expands the annex a little bit, and he builds tennis courts right here. Wait a minute, this is important. This is important. Why is that important, Charles? In 1926, he sells that lot to the new Inlet Fire Hose Company. And look, there's a fireman's building here.
Yeah.
All right. Now there's two groups. One group that arranged raising money to buy the building. They were called the Inlet Firemen's Building Company. They incorporated only for raising money. The Inlet Fire Hose Company, and we're going to do a program on that in September. The Inlet Fire Hose Company started in 1923, and they didn't have a building. So that's why the other company started to get them a building. And Fred Parquet sold him this lot. Those were the grounds where the tennis courts were on. And also, when Fred Parquet expanded, he expanded all the way down here. Now, somebody said there wasn't a gift shop over here until I found this picture. This is that part, that left-hand side of the Parquet. Here's some more pictures of it, the inside. Now, in 1960, Northern Lights was opened by Marshall Starr after he sold the Inlet Sweet Shop. In 1962, the Parquet burns. There was another picture I had of the fire, and Northern Lights was over here. You can see the ice cream cone lights. And then this is the post office building. Now, this is a library building here. Underneath the post office is where the engines came out. They needed more room. So Mary Goodwin Armstrong acquired the land next door to the post office building, and the Inlet Hose Company was able to make a building there. I don't have a picture of that here, I'm sorry. But later on, the part that burned here became the carousel. There's those ice cream cone lights. And then, let's see, when did that happen? I don't know when the Stars sold Adirondack Reflections, but the present owner made it Adirondack Reflections, then he modified it further. Dad's Inn. It's been getting a lot of traffic on Facebook. All right, everybody know where Drake's is?
Yeah.
Now you look across the street, there's a gray building there.
Yeah.
Looks like it's been there for years. It's been there for years. All right? Nettie Grimno. Nettie Grimno added it. I like some of the signs here. Free dancing at Loomis's restaurant. Last chance for gas. Dad's Inn. Many miles. Next station. Of course, across the street It's Babcock's that has gas.
Yeah, but you'd have to go all the way to Rocket if you're going that way.
You still do.
So that's at
Wait.
the corner,
Seventh
Lake
Lake
Road. Where this guy's leaning on a gas pump. He's leaning on a gas pump where Drake's Inn became. Now that road you see there, that didn't happen until 1929.
Right.
So the road ended right here at 7th Lake Road and Dad's Inn. And that sign went up, I guess, because, well, the road went on for miles. This is what it looks like today.
That good?
Huh? I'm sorry, was that?
Does it look that good?
Yeah, it does.
One more payment and it's ours. All right. I didn't turn my page, did I? We're almost through, folks. Drake's Inn was started in 1936 by Joanne Stage's father, John Stage, and his grandfather, John Gordon Stage. They bought it in 1936 from Jenny Galvin. Joanne's grandfather and father built what became known as Frankie and Johnny's, named for Joanne Stage's parents, Frankie, Francis and John. After the death of her father, in 1945, they sold it to Henry Babcock and it became Babcock's Inn. Babcock's Inn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they owned it until 1972 until they sold it to Alan and Audrey Drake. It became Drake's. This is Frankie and Johnny's inside. This is Babcock's inside. This became Drake's Inn. And I still know about this guy. He always used to tell you to sing it and beat it on Sundays because the crowd was big. But you always found out what was happening in town. Drake's Inn. That might be my last picture. Thank you, folks. Keep those cards and letters coming. We got the building that can take the pictures. Thank you very much. Can anybody take the first part?